Well, without further ado, my friend and partner, Remy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So my name is Remy DV. So sorry we invited you for an Irish breakfast and we have a French speaker. So I apologize for the confusion. So I'm the founder and CEO of SmarTECHS, and I wouldn't be here without Joe. So thank you again, Joe. So today we're going to talk about digital transformation. It's really not about, first disclaimer, I'm not a technology guy. Joe is a technology guy. I'm an ops guy. I spent the last 20 years managing global operation, including field operation, and I always felt field operation was a black box. I always had issue to drive cost improvement, drive service improvement with clients. And so 2 years ago, I decided to find a solution for the problem that I was having. And so the goal of the conversation today is to share with you some of my learnings during the last 2 years, looking at what are the different elements around digital transformation, what is ready for prime time, and what are the learning for all of us in business today. When we look at digital transformation, there are basically 4 key elements. Augmented reality, Internet of Things, big data analytics, and artificial intelligence. Augmented reality, most of what we've seen is mostly virtual reality. It's a closed environment, it's mostly for the gaming industry. It's not been quite deployed in industry. There are some loose competitors that are working on a true AR with 3D animation. They are actually very largified. It's getting easier to deploy, but it's not quite ready for the field. Now, what we've seen is with the development of heads-up display, we are able to deliver some kind of augmented reality, and we're going to talk about it, and mostly in the form of context-relevant content. So you don't have to have a 3D augmented reality to provide additional information, but just providing relevant information as you go along your day, provide context and provide relevance. The second element is Internet of Things, and the Internet of Things is really about connecting different elements. And when it started, people were excited, we're going to connect your toaster with your fridge, and it was like, okay, what's the value of it? And so quickly it moved into the IoMe, and it's really surrounding your Apple Watch and your calendar and your agenda and things that evolve around yourself. But really the most of the value is in industry. If you look at the production line, you have very different type of equipment that are not talking to each other. So you have a Husky injection molding machine with a different packing line, and whenever you have paper jam or the systems are not communicating, they are not talking to each other. So the promise of IoT is really creating a unified system, and what we've seen is most of the deployment of IoT has been in industry, trying to create a unified system. And it's driving condition monitoring system, putting sensors on different type of equipment. You're looking for vibration, you're looking for heat, you're looking for any type of visual deviation, and then connecting that, bringing that to the cloud and trying to drive decision. And so we're having some conversations saying, well, this is being deployed and it's still very fragmented, and there is more opportunity to do something about it. And this is where we are leveraging C-Write, the platform, at the thin cloud, and kind of single unifying system. Big data analytic really plugged on the back of IoT to be able to make sense of all the information you are capturing. When you have a sensor detecting vibration, you are getting 1,000 signals per second about different vibration. You need to be able to manage this information and do something about it. And so now there is the algorithm and computing capability to really do something about it and drive meaningful information and make decisions out of it. So that is also slowly being deployed. Artificial intelligence, there is a lot of conversation about it. I think it's still very much at the edge. I don't think it has really moved into cooperation on a day-to-day basis. You have the Google and the Amazon testing it, but certainly I've not seen anything. Now, what you see is more and more sophisticated system experts and solutions that are making sense. So whenever you have, if you look at your calendar, you have a reminder, you have an Irish breakfast today, it's time to leave. Soon the system will tell you you're running out of gas, you need to allow for another 10 minutes to take gas on the way. So you're starting to connect through, using IoT through bridges on environment to make the information more relevant, but it's still not artificial intelligence. Now, what's interesting is when we talk about the digital transformation and the different changes in the industrial revolution, is they're getting closer to each other, they're getting more complex, and they're mostly talking about industry. Now, the revolution happened very much as well in the front office. If you think about the way we were working in the office 20, 30 years ago now, we get computers, you get process associated with HR, you in the cloud. But what is interesting is most of those revolutions actually have been implemented very much except field operation. If you think about field operation, where you have a function of a technician being at your client or fixing critical piece of equipment, it has not evolved much, and certainly not to the level of the recent digital transformation. And so what we see is that you have now technicians in the field, they are kind of, most of the time they are like these two guys in a truck and some tools. Sometimes they have too many tools, they cannot actually do their work. They got their phone, they got the tablet, they got their hands are not actually free to do any work. Sometimes they still have the paper, so try to read the wiring diagram when you are fixing. So you have bits and pieces of system, but it has not been thought through as a complete solution. And I think it's really not been adapted for the field and for the technician. So the issues are significant. You have an increased rate of complexity and sophistication. So you spend more and more time training your technician. Your technician, the workforce are getting older. It's getting more difficult to actually recruit. It's getting more difficult to retain technicians in their job because it's not a very sexy job. And so organizations are finding that it is more and more difficult to execute and perform effectively with their field operation. So in our search for, in our understanding of what was happening in the digital transformation and trying to resolve issues around field operation, so here are some of the issues that facing reporting, safety, productivity, skill retention, compliance, traceability. And when we go and see a client, we're asking them, what challenge are you facing? And usually the answer is like, well, all of them. We have to some degrees. It's all of them. So when designing the solution, then we say, well, let's create a solution that I was looking for 2 years ago when I was in operation. I wanted something not the most technologically advanced. I wanted something practical. I wanted something simple that was working. I wanted something easy to plug in and plug out. I've done some SAP implementation with my friend here, Sandeep, where you are supposed to switch off everything over the weekend, and on Monday you're going to start, and you do start, but you take 6 months to fix it. When you're working on field operation, you have to be at the client. You have to fix the bicycle at the same time you're riding the bicycle. There is no lifetime. So you want to be non-intrusive, easy to plug in and out, secure, scalable. So this created kind of the DNA of the organization and what we developed at SmarTECHS. So we created a solution that says that bring everything that the technician needs to do their job in one single platform. And usually when they start their day by looking at what is my work order, what type of safety equipment do I need, what are the type of part checklist, tool list, then am I doing an inspection, am I doing a repair, what is it that I need to do, and if I need some help, you can just by voice command call for remote expert and get access to information. So what I'm going to do.
So just to point out, that screen is augmented reality. That screen is not in that physical environment, but the technician believes it's there, from a function. It's projected. It's projected. Yeah.
So we're going to do actually a small demo of the SmarTECHS solution. Just a few simple steps to give you a visual of what the technician actually see and experience. So I'm starting the solution. I'm going to flip the screen here, so you're going to see this screen, and basically what you see on this screen is what I see in the heads-up display. Everything is voice command, everything is voice control, so as a technician I can do the work. We are connected to the cloud through the mobile phone. Right now we're going through a test server in India, and all of the video feed is going through Europe. We're doing that so that we are testing the system to this extreme. And I have my remote expert technician sitting in the back of the room while it's going through India and Europe, and he's going to help me to do a simple repair. So we're going to do some repair today, so I'm going to call fixing it. I'm going to reactivate. All right, my program, SmarTECHS, fixing it. All right, we're going to do electric panel repair. Electric panel repair. Go direct, so we can either scan a QR code or then go direct, or geolocation. Also, we have different elements that are going to help us to drive the relevance, right? It's all about context relevant. So go direct. See right HQ. All right, and here I'm on the procedure, and the first thing is telling me PPE required. Do I have my protective equipment? Confirm. All right, next I have access to the panel, and so this is the panel. We're going to do another exercise here. We're actually going to try to repair this screen here. And so I'm having some issue. I'm not too sure on how to repair this. I don't know if Joe knows how to repair it neither, but so we're going to call our expert here. Open support call. Gauge AGAG. All right, and now I'm coming and bringing up my remote expert. I'm getting a video. We're having a conversation with one of you this morning, and the comment was 80% of the repair in the field requires somebody remotely to provide support. 80%. And many times the technicians are in the field, they're waiting. They're waiting for the phone call, somebody to reply, they're waiting for a procedure, they're waiting for something. So, hey Gage, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Amy. How you doing?
And I'm trying to do some repair here with the panel, and I have a lot of loose wires. Can you help me decide which wire should I connect?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and just take a look at the back of that for me.
Sure.
Just, lower your view a little bit. Right there. That's perfect. Okay. Bring this up for you.
So right now he's taking a picture of it, and he's going to be able to edit and do some drawing and give me direction on exactly what to do. And if we are missing any information, for example, if I were to remove this cover here and I have access to a circuit board, I don't have the wiring diagram. My remote expert has the wiring diagram, is going to bring it over, and then I have access as a visual to it. And then I can zoom it on the wiring diagram, I can freeze the document even if I move my head. So you remember the picture of the technician with the paper on the wiring diagram? Now I'm going to see the wiring diagram here, I'm going to have it here, and I can actually test the voltage of the different component. I can take a picture myself, validate that the work was done, go next, end of conversation, and we're moving on. So we have 3 different levels. So I think I'm good. I think it's working here. Thank you, good. So we have 3 different levels of support we're providing to the technician in the field. The first one is just the ability to view documents. You have instruction, you have a part list, you have, so that's pretty easy. The next level is the ability to bring an expert and bring a connection with somebody remotely. And then the third, because you have 8 or 70% of the case, you have a technician that's actually requiring support from somebody else, why not empower the technician with the procedures and information they need in the first place so they don't have to make the call. So we're giving them, and this is what you were saying, you were seeing just now, step-by-step guidance. The technician have the procedure, they follow the steps, they can take pictures. So for example, if we look at wind turbine, the gearbox is insured by a third party. It's very important to have traceability of what type of oil, what type of filter that was used. You can ask the technician to actually take a picture of the equipment that is being served and the type of system being, type of oil being used, so that you can record the information. And once it's finished, you click next, and actually, if I go through the procedure, both Joe and I would have received an email, and that was part of the demo today, but so it's in real time. So you can send it to your client, you can really get the information in real time, and you're going to see who did what, when, where, and how. So that's a snapshot about SmarTECHS. If you remember, those are the same kind of icon that we were seeing in the screen. And we have 5 elements in that admin platform, 2 of which is allowing us to basically, the app editor and the app publisher, you're able to create, digitize your work process, create apps, create procedures, and then publish those procedures in real time to your technician. So client call, you have an issue, you need to customize the procedure. As you dispatch your service tech, you can actually empower them with the right procedure they need to do the job at your client location. All right, so enough about SmarTECHS. This is not, the purpose here is not about selling you about the SmarTECHS solution, is to talk about digital transformation. Because really what I started the journey with simple problem, was about productivity, was about safety, was about pretty, I would say, granular type of issues around field operation. And as I went through that journey, I realized that actually digital transformation has much deeper impact on the business. And we're really at an inflection point, because you cannot succeed in your business without technological integration. If you look at the largest driver for success in your business in terms of effectiveness of your process, in terms of engagement with your customer, one of the largest driver is your ability to integrate with technology. And there are basically 3 key elements of the digital transformation. It's about changing the process, it's about changing customer experience, and it's about changing the business model. And if you look about those elements, changing the process, now you have the ability to actually standardize and empower. I was part of global cooperation, and one of my roles, we were in a fairly large organization that's very fragmented, 28 different countries, and I was in charge of creating the global operation. So we kind of centralized everything. And what we lost in many ways was innovation. Because in the old model was either innovate or standardized or control. One or the other. We had really hard time in previously to do both. And so now with digital transformation, with the type of tools that solutions that are available, you really have the ability to do both. So for example, on the SmarTECHS solution, while we are now telling the technician what to do, They have voice, they have an icon, they have a button, they have the ability to provide feedback on any procedure, anytime. So the ownership of the best procedures is then collaborative, it's becoming a team effort rather than being centralized. And then you can reward the organization based on the collective input rather than the single input at headquarters. And then you're really creating continuous improvement and engagement within the organization. So rather than having what I call tribal knowledge, loose knowledge in the field, the technician, they've been here 20 years, they know what to do, but each and every team does it differently. You actually centralize, you empower, and you empower everybody to contribute. And that's really a key element and key differentiation of the power now of the digital transformation, the ability to do that. How many times, while a technician was, your client may have contested some of the invoice and bill and say, well, we billed you for 8 hours. Well, I saw the technician, he was on site for 4. Whatever. Now you have visibility of all of that. Before the technician leaves the job, the client could have a report with pictures, with all kind of information. You would be much more able to upsell to your client on some actual issue that's been collected in the field. And that's really leading about the change in actually the type of business model. If we look at pretty innovative organization, they have been, rather than selling equipment, they have started to think about selling a time, selling different type of information. We've done some work with PSA. PSA is a local automation company, and they were doing some work for Wawa, putting automation in their packaging line. And so what we realized is all of that was great, but who was running the factory on 3 a.m. on the 4th of July? The forklift driver. He's the only one in the factory. He's the only one, he's taking the pallet and he's putting it in the warehouse. Now, if we have a jam in the packaging equipment, if we need to reset the automation robot, if we need to start the generator, there was nobody on site. And so you're taking people out, you're putting complexity, you're putting more sensors, and then you're actually removing knowledge and information in people. And so unless you're able to empower them, that's becoming by far your weakest link. So it's really driving then the business to rethink about how am I selling my equipment? Do I just sell a $20 million piece of equipment and then going to ask the client to wait for 2 days or 3 days service to send my techs and charge them for air freight, and or do I sell them a piece of equipment with a 2-hour service time? How can you rethink your business model and provide differentiation in terms of value? So that's conclude the kind of the a little bit the sharing of my or we have also leadership capability, which I think is very important in being able to drive change within the organization. You need to connect with the organization, have a wider conversation, and rethink the business model. And it's all about driving it from the top, having the governance, putting it as part of the strategy, and having a real plan to drive it. So that's kind of conclude this part of the conversation and my learning about the journey, starting with a simple problem and understanding what solutions are there that are ready to deploy, and understanding a little bit more broadly the impact of the technology that we now have in front of us.